That first park was legit.
What the hell is this guy talking about? Is he referring to the park from the first movie? The one that never opened? The one where 5 people were killed? Is he talking about the park that the owner himself decided was too dangerous? Well, that doesn't make any sense. The only thing this guy would have heard about the park is the horror story, which is specifically not legit. Or is he referring to the dinosaurs, as in the first park had real dinos while we have these crossbreeds? It's not like the dinosaurs in the first movie were pure dino either. They were made by splicing dino and frog DNA and injecting it into unfertilized ostrich eggs. Not exactly legit. If it's just the Indominus Rex that he has a problem with, then referencing the first park doesn't really make that point. So is he making a meta reference to the movies themselves? As in Jurassic Park was a legit movie, as opposed to this turd? That's true, but telling your audience that the movie they just paid $15 to watch is actually a turd is pretty insulting. But the first movie was legit, and this movie is a turd, so we'll let it pass for being accurate. It's almost as if this movie was written by a team of sociopathic space aliens who decided to get into the film business after studying humans for a week. None of the character dramas make any sense, the story doesn't make any sense, and there's some pretty serious ethical questions raised by the movie, though not on purpose, like what might happen in a movie written by humans. Let's start with the character dramas. I guess Owen and Claire were a thing and now aren't, but after Owen hunks around beating up dinosaurs, Claire decides that maybe she can settle for the uber chad male model / adventurer who tames raptors. What a compelling love story. The kids are very upset that Aunt Claire doesn't want to hang out with them, and we've all been there, going off to have fun running around the zoo, desperate for Aunt Claire to tag along and make sure we don't break any rules. Oh, and I guess their parents are getting divorced. None of their dramas ever addressed beyond being mentioned, and it has no impact on the kids, nothing is learned, and no personal challenges are overcome. Then there's Aunt Claire. She hasn't seen her nephews in 7 years. She doesn't even know how old they are. So what? We have this scene where the kid's mom, who is at work, calls Aunt Claire and starts crying because she's working instead of hanging out with the kids. So it's just fine that their own mother has to work, but not fine for Aunt Claire? It's implied that this whole thing was planned out and that Claire would have been with the kids, but something came up that she can't get away from. Should Claire say to hell with her badass career to go hang out with her sister's kids? Hell no. Just like all the other character dramas in this movie, this drama only exists to be drama. It has no actual impact on the characters. And that's it for characters, if you can call them that. Now on to the story. It's bad. Too bad to fully cover since this movie is 10 years old and a multi-hour video would be excessive, but we'll hit a few key points. Owen and company are checking out the Indominus Rex and they see scratches on the wall. Then they check out the thermal cameras and they can't see the dinosaur. There's a few reasonable assumptions that could be made. 1. The cameras are broken. 2. The Indominus Rex is hiding. 3. The Indominus Rex escaped. The reasonable course of action is to assume it escaped just to be safe. Get a hold of your asset containment team and get them searching the park. Start getting all visitors back to the visitor center. Call the mainland and let them know there may be a containment breach. Get the scientists on the horn and ask them if the Indominus Rex could hide itself in some way. Get engineering in there to look at the camera systems to see if there are any malfunctions. Get a helicopter over the paddock to try to spot it. Get a robot in there to start looking around. And maybe, I don't know, check the dino's tracker. Do they do any of this? No. They do the most unreasonable thing possible and personally go inside the paddock to do something. We're not sure exactly what. This act of criminal stupidity gets dozens of people killed, and the writers of this movie just hoped we didn't notice. Or they're this mind-numbingly stupid, and that's what they would have done. There's this whole thing with InGen trying to weaponize the raptors, and it should be obvious that raptors would not be good on the battlefield, not even in Tora Bora. This is for the same reason that elephants aren't good on the battlefield. Sure, they can be extremely dangerous, but they're pretty worthless in an artillery barrage, and they can't spot IEDs. You might say that this movie is for kids, so the movie doesn't need a logical plot, but we should respect our kids enough not to feed them this kind of nonsense, especially if the kids are too young to know better. The characters and story of this movie are just awful, and on their own are enough to give the movie a 2 out of 10. But then there's the ethical questions. A movie written by humans may ask ethical questions, and this one does, but in a very inhuman way. The questions the movie does ask are asked by characters who are engaging with the very behaviors they find to be unethical. The owner thinks it's unethical to make such a dangerous monster, but he does it anyway. The scientist thinks it's unethical to play God, but he does it anyway. Owen and his raptor trainer buddy think the whole park is unethical, but they work there anyway. The first park was legit guy hates everything about the park, but he doesn't even bother to anonymously call the mainland to tell them there may be a problem. Every single person who works at this park seems to think the park is unethical, except Claire, who seems too dumb to know anything at all. This issue is problematic on its own, but it gets much worse. To illustrate the point, let's look at two scenes. The first scene, sad music starts to play while Owen and Claire come upon a mortally wounded dinosaur. They get out of the Jeep and tenderly pet the dying creature as it struggles to breathe. Slowly, it succumbs to its injuries. Owen and Claire are both on the edge of tears. The sad music swells as the characters crest the hill and see there's a field of dinosaurs slaughtered by the Indominus Rex. What cruel twist of fate brought these beautiful creatures to such a brutal end? The second scene. Oh no, the pterodactyls escaped and are flying around, brutalizing the crowd of desperate visitors. One of them grabs Claire's aide and flies off with her. It drops her into the aquarium and dives in after. Another one gets her and chews on her for a bit, then a giant water dinosaur swallows her whole. The kids see the whole thing and they're mildly aghast at the torturous death of someone who did absolutely nothing wrong to them, or anyone else as far as they know, but that's about it. The death of Claire's assistant is treated as a joke by the writers of this movie. Treating death lightly is a staple of monster movies where we don't really see some of the characters as people, but rather as victims of the monsters. Now this particular death was a little brutal for a kids movie, and it was played for laughs, so on its own, it's in mildly poor taste. It's in comparison to the previous scene when it becomes disturbing. In this movie, the death of a dinosaur is not treated as a joke. It's taken very seriously. It's obvious that we, the audience, are supposed to care about their deaths, like we would the death of a person in a drama, like Gladiator or Seven Samurai. In fact, we're told over and over again that the lives of dinosaurs are more important than the lives of people. When the guy falls into the raptor paddock, the others don't start shooting the raptors to make sure the guy survives. No, Owen tells them to hold fire because he doesn't want to lose the raptor's trust. These things could kill this guy before anyone had time to react, but the raptor's life is important and the human's life is not. Owen watches the engine dude get eaten and does nothing, even though he has a gun and could have saved his life. Okay, the engine guy is a bad guy, but he's a human and he did nothing that deserves death, and that's just a raptor, a wild animal. But Owen, who is supposed to be the good guy in this movie, clearly thinks the raptor is more important than this guy. The truly disturbing thing about all of this is that the writers of this movie think the same thing. They believe that an animal's life is worth more than a human life. But make no mistake, they don't think an animal's life is worth more than their lives. Notice that Owen and Claire and the kids' lives aren't considered less important than the dinosaurs. They're the main characters, just like the writers and the people they care about are the main characters in their lives. They know full well how much more important their own lives are than the lives of wild animals. It's your life that's worthless. It's the audience whose lives are less important than an animal's. This movie is unwatchably bad, so it gets a 1 out of 10 on this list, but it even stands out among those ones. As previously stated, the abysmal characters and story alone are enough to get the movie a 2, but the writers' disgusting attitudes make it one of the worst movies ever made. We cannot recommend this movie to anyone, and parents should think carefully before allowing their kids to watch it.